Hey, peeps, what's up? Back again, just like a long lost friend, right? How are y'all? How are y'all? I hope you're well. If you're not, I'm sorry to hear that, but life is rough. Whew. Life is rough and getting rougher. Getting rougher, right? Anyhow, this is going to be a shorter one, hopefully, than the last video. Just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in. That's how it feels right now. Okay, so remember, for all yous wondering, I have an open mind. I'm going to keep open-minded about this, but as far as I'm concerned right now, Brian Koberger is guilty, despite his latest motion for conviction relief. A request for conviction relief. He pled guilty. I mean, in the least, he's a loser or a quitter, even if he was innocent. Who gives it up like that? If you're truly innocent and you have that conviction in your heart of innocence, you don't throw in the towel. You don't agree to throw in the towel. You fight it. Yeah, you're facing the death penalty, but you fight it. I mean, doesn't he come from a Catholic family? Jesus Christ, their Savior, faced the death penalty and accepted it rather than giving up his faith and quitting on it. Now, I'm not religious, but I'm saying I come from a Catholic family too, and that was the teaching. You don't follow in Christ's footsteps if you're innocent, and you take that cross and you face it. You face dying on that cross for the truth and the light, right? I mean, so as far as I'm concerned, he's guilty because he said he was guilty. And so I went from there. I was leaning guilty before he, like I said, I was leaning guilty before he even, confessed. But then since he says he's guilty, then I look back and I think, well, that is the white car. That is an Elantra circling. All these people want to say, like Lana Banana, I heard her on one of her videos recently saying, because of a white car? And no, it's more than a white car, Lana. And if you had an open mind and you were open to the truth of the matter, no matter where it might take you, then you would acknowledge facts. And the facts are that is a white Elantra circling the neighborhood every single time. Despite what I thought it was, and per my analysis, per the 1330 Linda Lane camera. All I can say about that analysis is that when you digitize pics, it morphs them as they're moving. And so what appeared to be a bank of windows that resembled a Chrysler 300 had to be the bank of windows on the Elantra. We know that one shot definitely was where it pulls into the parking, where those parking spaces are, and you get a great side view of it. It's not moving there, it's stationary. But every other time it's moving. And so since it's moving, I think with digitization, it morphs the shapes. So the shapes are not representative of what they truly are. That can be my only explanation for it. It's not because there's some kind of nefarious thing going on with the video and it was being manipulated. I don't believe that for a second. When I look at the 1112, and I'll cover this in another video so you see it too. When I look in the 1112 video and freeze some of the frames for a second or so of that white vehicle passing each time, it comes in and out like 4 times or whatever. But you can, when you freeze it, every time, you can see that bank of windows matches the Elantra. It does. Now, could it potentially be another vehicle that it matches closely to? Yeah, but since we already know the 1330 Linda Lane camera where it gives you that great side view is absolutely, without a doubt, the Elantra. That was proven. I proved that with great analysis in my previous iteration. I have so many iterations. In my previous iteration, then it stands to reason that this white car that's coming in and out is that car. That's not a leap. That's common sense and logic. Okay? So it's not just a white car, it's a white Elantra in the year range that his vehicle is in. So accept facts. That's not the way you're going to be able to advocate for his innocence, by refuting facts. Or like his defense was doing, trying to get any and all evidence chucked, regardless of how valid it was. That's a bit deceitful and dishonest. Instead of coming up with a reasoning for the evidence that's being proffered by the prosecution, you try to get it chucked. That's another thing that was leading me to his guilt. That was their strategy, just to, it seemed like the final analysis was, their conclusion was, well, he's autistic, so quit picking on him. Autistic people could never do this, so there shouldn't even be a trial. Just let him go because he's autistic. That was my takeaway from all of it. And that's a piss poor defense. If he's innocent. Anyway, to this and the title, okay? And in each step of the way, folks, you have to say when you were wrong. I was wrong. I'm going to show you where I was wrong here in one of my analysis that I did in regard to a vehicle that I described as a truck, and it turns out it wasn't a truck at all. It doesn't appear to be from this video coupled with the other one. It's not a truck. It's a big SUV. It potentially could be a Hummer. And in fact, I would say this may very well be a Hummer. I thought it was a big black truck, but it's not. And I thought that the big black truck parked in the King Road house and parking lot because of the sounds I was hearing through the 1330 Linda Lane camera, and that person opened the door and all of a sudden you could hear Murphy barking. But that's not the case, and we'll see why now. Murphy was, and you know what? The title says, was it Murphy barking? And this is a serious question and we have to answer it. Was it Murphy barking? And this is where I say this was a sloppy investigation. I don't mean that every single point of analysis that they did was sloppy. The vehicle identification was superb, in my opinion. They did an excellent job with vehicle identification. I was hard on them initially. I've come to respect their work on that. They did an excellent job charting this vehicle. Okay? In regard to FBI and CAST and the analysis related to the cell phone pings, I'm always going to contend that's crap. Okay? I'm sorry. It's crap. It's absolutely crap. Not going to accept it. It's junk science because the scientists say so. It is junk science. Lean into the science. The scientists say it's junk science. I'm going to accept the fact that it was a large sample, not a minimal sample on that knife sheath. And so therefore, there's no doubt in my mind that was his DNA on the knife sheath. Now, he owes it to everyone to explain how that could possibly be. He owes that explanation. Why was your DNA found on something in that house? In particular, and especially, a sheath, K-bar sheath that holds a knife, and these victims were stabbed to death with a knife, the wounds of which matched the description of a K-bar knife. Like I said, he's got a large mountain to climb. It's many times taller than Everest. So anyway, I've been wrong about a number of things. I'm willing to admit it. Why? Well, because this is a journey and I want the truth. I want the truth. And I still feel that law enforcement, where they go wrong and where this is crappy, is the narrative that they created around this. It doesn't fit the evidence so far. Now, maybe it does, but they need to be more transparent with the evidence to make it fit. Because as it stands right now, it's not fitting. There's just too many contradictions here that don't make sense. And this is why, and thanks to Enduring Valor, thank you for your comment. You're right. Allocution. There should have been allocution here. This should have all been cleared up. All of it should have been cleared up. And I think the reason it wasn't was because the state had a crappy narrative here. I think there's more to it with Brian Kohberger and this slaughter and this massacre than their narrative. The narrative doesn't fit exactly what went on. Maybe not even closely. And I'm not trying to say this nonsense that Pav puts forth. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about precisely how this all went down, the timing of it, for example. And that's what I'm going to speak to here. Okay, was it Murphy who was barking? Or was it Murphy barking? It's presumed it was. It's presumed by law enforcement it was. It's presumed by all the guilters that it's Murphy, and that Murphy barking indicates the time of death of Xana. Now, I don't get this. I don't even get how they can back into that it's the time of death of Xana. But we need to listen to it first to understand this, okay? There are some sounds, if you remember from the... See, I even forget the terminology now. Is it the PCR? The probable cause document that they put out. If you remember in that, they mentioned that there was some sounds that they declared or proclaimed came from the house, maybe like a thud and a sigh, or, a moan. You can hear something like that, maybe. I mean, you'd have to stretch. If you weren't given that, as that's what that was, is that what you'd say it was if you listened to this going in clean and didn't even know what you were listening to? Probably not. But considering that now we know it's the context of a massacre, and we know that massacre occurred during this time, how much before and after, how long the duration of the massacre was, it's still, to me, a mystery. But at least it falls within that range, so you could, say that could be coming from the house at that time. That could be Ethan and Xana being slaughtered at that moment. Possibly. Don't know that for sure, but possibly. But that's what law enforcement wants you to conclude, because they put that in the probable cause affidavit. That's it, the PCA. So they put it in the PCA. Sorry, it's been a long time, folks. It's been over a year, and I'm not I'm not that into true crime. Every now and then we'll watch one of these shows about somebody being murdered, but not that much anymore. So I'm rusty. I am rusty in the terminology. But anyway, let's roll the bean footage. Remember bean footage? That wonderful bean footage? So let's roll it. This is 417. Okay, we want to get to where we hear these moans. So let's take it back to here and start it. Okay, now you got to listen to it. These sounds that they say are like a thud that they're saying is coming from the 1122 King Road house, which is right next door to this camera. This camera with this microphone. They're saying that before Murphy, and they want you to think it's Murphy, before the dog starts barking, but they claim it's Murphy. Before the dog starts barking, there's this thud and maybe what can be considered moans, and then there's the dog barking, and they're saying the dog's barking because they were just massacred. But then you have to ask yourself the question: well, if that's the case, why wasn't the dog barking earlier? Because earlier, that's the way law enforcement narrative goes, is that Maddie and Kaylee were massacred prior to Xana and Ethan. So, but you're on this tape, you don't hear Murphy barking or any dog barking prior to this dog starting to bark at 4 minutes and 17 seconds and something. You don't hear it prior to that. So if it's Murphy barking, why wasn't, Murphy barked starting at 4:17 something and stopped barking? Well, why did it bark when Xana and Ethan were being massacred, but not, his beloved Kaylee and Maddie? Why wasn't Murphy barking then? Right? That's a contradiction. And it seems to me that this is law enforcement just trying to make it fit. Their narrative is faulty, in my opinion. It's faulty for more than that reason. And I'll show you in a second why. So let's listen if we can pick up on... We're at 4:16. So this is around the time that Xana and Ethan, per law enforcement, were supposed to have been massacred and taken their last breaths, so to speak, or around that time. Who knows how long they lingered, barely alive until afterwards. We don't know that. You can't say that they just bled out immediately. Maybe they lived for half an hour after being stabbed here. And had Dylan and Bethany called 911, they may have been able to save them. Maybe. So I'm sorry, I don't buy the Consalvases saying, there's no way anybody could have been saved. That's baloney. They could have. And I don't buy that that Dylan and Bethany were traumatized. I mean, if they were how were they traumatized? They didn't know for sure what was going on. They were in their rooms. They didn't know for sure what was going on. Bethany didn't even know Jack Squattle was going on until Dylan informed her. So they did not, you can't consider that it was traumatic at that time. And if she truly felt like she was in danger, I mean, that's the excuse they're using. Well, it was so traumatic for her that she was so frightened that she couldn't call 911. What were you so frightened about that you couldn't call 911? By the time she saw the, allegedly Brian Koberger in the mask, I mean, this was after it was all said and done. And the fact that she lived through that, at that time, I could see her being many times more afraid, and certainly she could have called 911 then. But even before that, if she was concerned, we're going to get into that in another video, by the way. From what I heard on the Netflix documentary, it's another contradiction. There's so many of them. This shit doesn't add up. But anyway, let's listen and see if we can hear like the thud and the possible moan or sounds that seem muffled and muted, but they're coming from somewhere. I mean, for all you know, if you didn't know anything about the murders or the massacre that night that was going on at this time, you might think it was people inside the house, making whoopee, right? I mean, who knows? But take a listen and see if we can hear it prior to the dog starting barking. Okay, right there. Did you hear that? That 51 and 52. Let's go back so you can hear it again. About 51 or 52, you start to hear this, I think. So it's these weird sounds. You'd never know what this was if you didn't know there was a massacre occurring at the time. But since there is a massacre occurring at the time, you have to consider that it may be coming from within the house. But if it's coming from within the house, it's significantly muffled, as you would expect, right? Because it's behind walls. So it's like you trying to talk through a sock or a towel, right? It's going to be muffled on this microphone. That's what you would expect. So let's listen to it again. It's starting at 51 and 52. 51 and 52 up here. See it there, 58, 59, 58 and 50. So we know 51 and 52, we heard something like this. 58 and 59, you can hear something again. It could be anything, but certainly it could be the sound of somebody behind walls, like, oh, or oh, something like that, right? You could see that. And we have to consider the context of a massacre occurring at this time. So certainly you can see that. Let's see if we hear any more of what could be considered moaning or, a sobbing or loud sobbing or a pleading, as you're dying out. Let's see. Yes, you hear that? There we go. Here comes the dog. So at 4:17:11. Now, this is much louder than those muffled sounds, right? Much louder. So I'm going to play it at a lower volume in a second too, so you can. It's really what I'm saying is more obvious when you play the volume not so loud. So let's listen. Actually, let's listen to all that with the volume lower, because I think the volume's way too loud for that. It actually hinders what I'm saying versus underscore what I'm saying when it's that loud. So let's go back. Let's go back to before. Okay, let me turn the volume down here. Okay, that should be good. And let's roll that beam footage again. See, that's muffled, right? That sounds muffled to me. Okay? Now, I've got a couple of theories what this could be other than them claiming that it's Xana and or Ethan, moaning or, weakly pleading or anything like that, or that it's related to them being, stabbed to death at the moment. It could be something else. And I'll proffer that too. Okay, so here we go. So let's continue to listen, because this is right about now that we're going to start hear the dog barking in a very pronounced way. Oh, there we go. Did you hear that? So right there, 4:17:35. So let's go back. That was not the dog barking. Okay. So listen, that was not the dog barking this time. It's intermixed. Yeah, hear that? That was definitely a voice. That was a human voice. Maybe something like, hey, get out of here, or... So you could absolutely hear that. There it is again. So we've got about 6 seconds of some kind of commotion and human voice or human voices. Oh, there's that thud. So there was the thud. Did you hear that? That was absolutely a thud at about 40 or 41. So listen to the thud. There, that was loud. So for this microphone to pick that up, and if that's coming from the 1122 King Road house, and I think it's a safe assumption to say it is at this point, because we know a massacre is going on at this time now, then that could have been a crash. That could have been a really loud sound from within the house. If you're in the house, this is going to be really loud. Okay? For it to be heard outside the house, it's going to be really loud. But you can tell, you can't make out what that is, can you? I mean, you're hearing something, you know it's a human voice, but it's garbled and it's muffled, rightfully so, because it's behind walls. So it's, trying to decipher what a human voice is saying when they have a towel over their mouth and they're like, and just like that, right? However, I want you to notice the dog barking. It's not muffled. When we hear this dog barking, it is not a muffled sound. It's clear. There's no muffling here at all. There's no muffling. So I got a theory related to this, okay? I have a theory related to this. And it's a theory that fits better. Listen to that barking. That's not muffled like those human voices or human voice was muffled amidst that commotion. Right? Even the loud crashing sound that you heard, for this microphone to pick that up within the house, which I think it did, it had to be a pretty loud crashing sound. And I ask you, what is Dylan doing with a sound like that? What is Dylan doing if this camera picked up all that commotion from inside that house? Right? All that commotion. That what had to be, someone being smashed to the floor. Probably that. Imagine that sound in that house too, with those as poorly built as it is, and you're on. Let's say it is Xana and Ethan's room. If they get thrown, smashed to the ground, it's something gets knocked over or smashed in the process. That's just a subfloor there. I mean, it's going to make a loud ass sound, and then you've got perhaps her pleading or screaming or get out of here or please leave me alone, all that. And then you get Dylan saying she's opening her door and see this guy walk by in a way. I mean, You don't call 911? You got your phone right there with you and you don't call 911? This does not, no. First of all, you can't say you're traumatized because you didn't witness anything. You don't know for sure what's going on. But if you're scared and frightened because of that, or so you think something might be going on, you don't have enough information to be paralyzed. But you do have enough information to call 911, thinking this could be bad and we need to get police here because they're the only ones that can protect me right now. I would think that would be just a natural process for anybody. So I don't want to hear this crap that you're traumatized. Yeah, I could see after the fact when you find out your friends have just been slaughtered and you know, and now you know the truth of the matter, being traumatized. Yeah, but that's not the case in this moment. At 4 something in the morning, it's not the case then. So I don't get the not calling 911. I don't. And like I said, they may still have been alive for half an hour afterwards. They might have been able to be saved. All of them, perhaps. Nobody knows when the time of death actually was for them. If their jugulars weren't ripped open immediately, or any of their major pulmonary veins and their hearts weren't pierced immediately, then they would have bled out, and it would have taken time to bleed out, and they possibly could have been saved. They may have been unconscious and losing blood for half an hour. Nobody can make that call and know for sure. Anyway, I'm so sick and tired of hearing that. I'm not saying Dylan and Bethany are guilty here, or they did it, or they're involved in anybody. I'm not saying that here. I'm just saying there's a possibility exists that these 4 victims could have been saved, or at least some of them could have been saved if 911 was called. That possibility exists. So don't say it doesn't. And don't say they didn't call 911 because they were traumatized. They weren't traumatized. They didn't know what happened yet. All they know was something weird was going on, or at least Dylan did. Bethany didn't. And something significantly weird, considering this crashing sound that must have been incredibly prominent within the home itself for this camera to pick it up outside of the home. But getting back to this, the dog, to me, this tells me the sound the dog is making compared to that garbled human voices and moaning or whatever it is, or, I think it's loud. I think it's voices. I think it's loud voices. But this camera is picking it up through walls, which makes it sound like somebody trying to, holler through a towel. But that's not the case with the dog. The dog, I don't believe, when you juxtapose it against those garbled sounds, human voice sounds, is not in the house. The dog is outside of the house. So, in my opinion, if it's outside of the house, either it's not Murphy and it's another dog, which would fit with me what I said before about, well, if Murphy's barking now, why didn't Murphy bark when Maddie and Kaylee were dispatched? Right? I mean, why would Murphy just bark now? There was a commotion then too. We'll consider that in Dylan's witness testimony from behind closed doors, her bedroom door, about what transpired with Maddie and Kaylee prior to Ethan and Xana. So, yeah, I mean, we can listen to it again, but listen, the dog bark is much more pronounced than the garbled human voices. It's not muffled in any way, and it's echoing actually. So it's actually, when you listen to it, you can hear it like echoing within the bowl of that neighborhood. So that tells me it's outside. It's not being filtered through a wall. The dog, whatever dog is barking, is outside. Is it Murphy outside? Well, if it's Murphy outside, we've got problems, folks. This is a major contradiction, and it raises massive red flags. If this is Murphy barking, because it means Murphy was outside of the house. And people said, oh, well, Murphy just went through the sliding door and went out back. Are Murphy's footprints in the snow out back? And this is transparency once again. We know that those footprints were out there. Those size 13, they said footprints were out there. They were able to explain those away somehow. They never said how they were able to explain that away. Isn't that interesting? That's the kind of transparency I'm talking about. What were the footprints out back? Whose footprints were they? I want to know that. Whose footprints were they? Okay, were Murphy's footprints out back as well? Because if Murphy's footprints weren't out back, yet that sliding glass door was open, and yet here, like I'm saying, this dog barking is outside, then that means that if it was Murphy, Murphy probably would have to been out front, right? I mean, it couldn't have been out back, because out back the footprints would have been in the snow right there. That snow was just right off the patio. Were you believe that Murphy just went, 2 steps outside the sliding glass door where it was still pavement and not snow yet, and just did all that barking and then went back in and went upstairs and closed the door on himself? Remember, he was found with the door closed in Kaylee's room. So either this isn't Murphy barking, it's another dog in the neighborhood, which is interesting in and of itself, right? I mean, why is another dog in the neighborhood barking for something going on in the house at that moment, unless that, sound that camera picked up is, more prominent in certain directions than others, and like it's a dog behind the house, and it heard this commotion from within the house and started barking because it heard that commotion. Maybe there wasn't as much commotion when Kaylee and Maddie were being massacred as when Ethan and Xana were being massacred. That very well could be the case, because we know Xana had defensive wounds, so she was putting up a fight. So there's going to be, probably more yelling, screaming perhaps. This is what this camera's trying to pick up, and it's very garbled. It doesn't seem like much on this camera, but it's behind a wall. Like I said, imagine doing all that through a towel. It's likened to that, but not this dog. This dog isn't muffled or garbled. So either it's Murphy outside, it would have to be then, therefore, Murphy probably out front, because I didn't see any dog footprints when I was on the Netflix documentary when they were showing the size 13 footprints in the snow. I didn't see any dog footprints around that. So if it's Murphy, it had to be Murphy out front. Well, what was the front door doing open? And what was Murphy doing out front? And if that's Murphy out front barking, then how did Murphy get back in the house and get up into the bedroom with the door closed? How the police found Murphy, right? So let's listen to it again, and now listen to it this time through with what I just said, and tell me if I'm not right here about this. Okay, so let's listen again. Considering that context I just described. Wait, let me go back far enough, sorry. Here we go, my bad. See, so here I've got another theory. The initial sounds that we heard at the 51, 52, I'll take it back to it. 4, 16, 51, and 52. It is the dog barking from within the house. And then we get all this commotion and garbled human voices, almost like crying. You can actually, if you think about it, you can almost hear crying right now. And oh my God. It's almost like you can hear someone saying, oh my God. Like you could almost hear Xana saying, oh my God. or get out or something to that effect. And then as we proceed, the dog barks a little bit more, but it's still muffled. It's a dog barking sound, but it's still muffled like it's behind the towel, in the house. And then all of a sudden, the dog's bark is much more pronounced as though it's now out of the house. So listen to that once again. Starting about this time, 4/17/55, the dog barking is much more pronounced than what I believe is the dog barking inside the house prior to. Which means then, since it has to be coming from the 1122 King Road house, I believe, at that point. So it is Murphy, but Murphy is initially barking from within the house, and then Murphy is barking outside of the house. And as I just established, I did not see Murphy's footprints in the snow next to those size 13 footprints in the snow in the Netflix documentary. So it's not Murphy out back, in my opinion. It's Murphy out front of the house, which means the front door has to be open. Well, wait a minute. What the F is going on here? This contradicts everything they're talking about. And these are the things that matter. They have to make their narrative fit. It can't fit loosely. They got to make their narrative fit. And allocution could have cleared a lot of this up. So once again, listen to that. Listen to this footage with that in mind. See, that sounds like a dog, but it sounds muffled, right? It sounds like a dog's bark behind the wall, muffled. Listen to it again. See, sounds like a dog. And there's a couple more barks before we get into what sounds like the human voice sounds. Right there. That sounds like another dog bark, but muffled and behind a wall. That one's a little more pronounced, right? Maybe the door is just starting to open now, the front door. A little more pronounced, but not as pronounced as it's going to be. Now it's pronounced. Now the dog is outside. So at 4/17/12, Murphy is now outside the house. Prior to, there's some barking, but the dog is behind the walls in the house. And then we get the human voices, which seems to me you can hear crying. This must be loud crying. And see, oh my God, that's definitely what I'm hearing. Oh my God, oh my God. Like, who's saying that? What if it was Dylan? That's crying. That could be described as crying that I'm hearing right now. Listen to how loud that is. And it's echoing. Listen to how loud that is, the echoing. Much more pronounced than those initial barks. This dog is outside. So then I ask you, is the person crying, and then we hear saying, oh my God, are they possibly out front too with the dog? Is that why this camera's picking it up so well? If it's just a kind of a silent crying from within the house, how could this camera pick it up through the walls? I mean, I know these houses aren't the best houses in the world, but still, I mean, we're talking, this camera's on the porch. It has to go around the corner, okay, and through a wall on the house to pick any of this up. But if somebody was out front, there was no wall between them and the camera, it would be able to pick up kind of subdued crying and oh my God, saying oh my God and crying. And then at the same time that they're doing this, this dog bark becomes much more pronounced because now the dog is out front. That dog's outside, man. You can't get that kind of echo. Do you hear the reverberation of the echo? That reverberation of the echo is all around this neighborhood right now. That's got to be outside because the wall would filter that echo otherwise. Homeboy's in a hurry. So for anyone to think that that vehicle was not involved in the massacre, you're insane. Okay? When you put it all together, something horrible happened there in these moments, and whoever is in that vehicle was involved in some way. There's no way you're going to tell me otherwise. I'm sorry. It only makes sense. It was a white vehicle. We know that it's an Elantra, and that Brian Kohberger's vehicle is in the year range of that Elantra that's been circling this house, like Gray Hughes said, like a shark. and it just splits. I mean, I thought that Brett Payne was exaggerating in the PCA about that vehicle skedaddling out of there, peeling wheels. I thought he was just engaging in hyperbole. No, he wasn't. Absolutely, he had it to a T. That's what that vehicle is doing. Look how quickly it got over. Look how quickly it got over here. I mean, it has to go down here and go around. It is hauling ass. Let's look at it again. Watch it again. The thing's hauling ass. I'm sorry. Take it back a little bit further. I mean, watch this thing haul ass. How quick it goes down to the end here and comes all the way around and up here. It's moving. It's hightailing it. He's hauling ass. Now, why would you be hauling ass like that out of there, huh? Let's say Dylan's accounting is completely true. Okay, and this is Murphy. I don't know how it can be completely true and this be Murphy. And I think this has to be Murphy because, like I said, it was muffled barking to begin with, and then now the barking is pronounced. And I think that's because the dog is outside and you're getting the reverberation of a massive echo, which means the dog has to be outside. It's not being filtered by the wall. But in the least, this dog barking, you know this had to alarm Koberger. This had to be part and parcel of the reason he's hightailed it. I mean, this dog's barking loud, man. This is if you were undertaking a massacre like this, I mean, I can't fathom that. It's not in me to even think in that way. But if you were, you would think that would make you a bit nervous. You know, it's a dog barking. They won't stop barking. I got to get the hell out of here now. I don't have time to clean up as much as I would want to clean up. I guess I can't use my vacuum after all. Now, there's many more contradictions here. If he was rushed, hastily, had to get out of there, how did he manage to, without the knife sheath, to secure the knife without it dripping between victims on floors, right? There should have been drops coming off the knife at least, you would think. As what a bloody mess, especially in Xana and Ethan's room, that he would have gotten some on his shoes and traipsed it down the hallway and out the back if that's the way he went. I mean, if what I'm saying here, I think I'm correct in this, that the dog was inside and then outside. Who let the dog out front? Was it him? Did he close the door before he left the front door? Did he bring Murphy back in and put Murphy in the... No, he couldn't have, because the dog's continuing to bark even after he's gone, outside, apparently. So these are all contradictions too. See what I'm saying? This is what I'm saying. The investigation was crap in this regard. They didn't put together a coherent narrative. Allocution, in my opinion, could have resolved a lot of this. I mean, one of the reasons this is so bizarre and there's so many contradictions is because we don't have full information. We've got some of this information. I'm glad we do. It's making more sense, but it's not making total sense. And it seems like because of the lack of information, we're only 65% of the way there. 70%. And this last 30% is the tough 30%. Because of these, red flags and contradictions. Anyway, listen to this dog. And then we'll see the big black truck that comes in is really not the big black truck at all. It's an SUV type vehicle, I think, maybe even a Hummer. And that's why it's so loud. But let's listen. The dog keeps barking, remember? Why the 1330 Linda Lane camera just started picking up the dog at 4:29 shortly after this SUV parks itself, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense because it's clear to me from this that this dog is outside and barking the whole time. Kudos to this dog. Because in the least, what can be said, if Dylan's completely innocent in all this, which we have to say she is right now until, we have proof or evidence to the contrary, despite these contradictions, which in themselves, lead you to believe there might be something else going on here. But sans that, this dog may very well have saved her life. It had to have hastened Brian Kohberger in his plans. He might have cut plans short. It could be that he was intended to go through that house entirely and slaughter everybody that would have been in there, checking every room. But because this dog starts barking and barking profusely and loudly, he's got to cut the plan short, and he's got to get out of there now. So the dog could very well have saved Dylan's and Bethany's life, and had they called 911, they could have very well saved either all 4 lives or a couple lives or 1 life. 1 life's better than none. But they didn't do what Murphy did, and that was sound the alarm. That was make the psychopathic slaughterer hasten, get anxious, leave quickly, not finishing the job. Don't you just love Murphy? Yeah. Hey, Steve Gonsalves, if you're listening, Murphy's not a goofy dog, all right? Murphy is super cool. And Murphy did what really nobody else did that night and saved 2 lives, namely Dylan's and Bethany's. Murphy, in my book, you're a hero. I love dogs, and I love Murphy. And I give you much more credit than Steve and Christy Gonsalves give you. You're a hero, Murphy. You're the only hero in any of this. Anyway, let's listen to, I'm going to say Murphy because it was in the house to begin with and then it was outside the house. And I shouldn't have to say this, but I will. This is all so chilling, is it not? To look at all this and think about what transpired amidst this footage that you can't see, but you know happened, is absolutely chilling, bone-chilling, awful. I mean, imagine if it was your son or daughter, or you, or your wife, or your girlfriend, it's horrific. That should never be lost in any of this. It's horrific. Absolutely horrific. So what I'm listening for now, and you should be listening for it too, is any sign of any human voices again, or crying or sobbing or anything like that. For any sign of that, right? Because that would be telling and a red flag as well, right? I mean, presumably by law enforcement's narrative, the massacre is now over. They lay dying or they're dead, one or the other. The perpetrator, Brian Koberger, has left the neighborhood. So if we hear any further human voices, garbled human voices, we will assume, like we did before, that they have come from 1122 King Road House. And then that means that Dylan's witness testimony does not add up. Something else is going on. So we have a car leaving the neighborhood at 4:24:18. Was that car considered as well? It's leaving slowly. Doesn't seem to be in a hurry. So So something that's noteworthy right now is when let's just say Brian Koberger's car stole out of there at a high rate of speed, you notice that the dog, let's just say it's Murphy. Murphy stopped barking for a while, like 30 seconds to a minute, stopped barking. And then it started barking again. And it didn't stop barking. And so the duration of this barking is incredible. And as a matter of fact, the last couple of minutes of it, it's like picking up in intensity. It has some major anxiety right now. Something's agitating it still. So is it over completely? What is agitating Murphy right now? Granted, I could see it being agitated amidst that massacre and the commotion, certainly. What's agitating it now? Is it merely that somebody put Murphy out front because the barks were initially seemed to be coming from within the house, then it was outside the house, and shut the front door? Now Murphy's just out there, and Murphy is like, let me the hell back in? And if that's the case, then who let Murphy back in and put Murphy in Kaylee's room and shut the door? And why would they do that? But yet, let's say it's Dylan or Bethany, why would they do that and not check on their friends at the same time? They had to know something. What they said, even in their witness testimony, something was weird or something was afoot. Well, why wouldn't they have checked on their friends if they did that? Wouldn't they be curious as to why Murphy was out front to begin with? Wouldn't they be curious about that? I mean, this barking goes on, as we know from my previous analysis, it seems like all the way to 5 o'clock. Did anybody, is everybody drunk in the neighborhood? I mean, I know it's a college town, these are college people, but is everybody an alcoholic to the point where they're blackout drunk that they don't hear the dog barking for this long? This is like, it's barking for 45 minutes straight, and it's agitated. I don't know, that might wake me up. I mean, and get me pissed. I might, open up the door and holler out and say, hey, shut the dog up. I've done that here in my house. We got some pesky little dogs next door, and, they won't stop. They'll be going on and on and on for like 20 minutes. I'd finally had enough, and I'll just yell out the door, like, shut them the hell up, Jesus. Right? I mean, these are all legitimate questions, and this is a legitimate inquiry, and we're just trying to get to the truth here, but we're trying to make this add up here. Were Bethany and Dylan not agitated by this dog barking for this long? This is 45 minutes. I didn't hear them mention in their witness testimony that the dog barked this long. I never heard them mention that the Murphy was found outside and they brought him upside and put him in the room because they didn't know what to do, but they were still scared. So they didn't check on their friends though. I didn't hear any of that. Is law enforcement not inquisitive? Did they not wonder this themselves when they're going through it? Because that's what I'm wondering when I go through it. I'm not just trying to conjure shit out of thin air. I'm trying to understand this. This dog is agitated. Either because it's been locked out of the house or because something is still ongoing and it's agitating it. You can start to hear on this microphone what I thought previously heretofore was the big black truck, okay? And what I mean by that, because it's about to come up through here. I thought it was a big black truck. So you can hear it on this video at, let me see what time we have here. Oh yeah, 4:27:30. So we want it to be in the 4:28 range. So You'll start hearing it on here too. So remember, I did a big, long analysis on what I thought was the big black truck, because it sounded like a truck to me. But as we see in this latest 1112 King Road video, it's not a truck at all. You can start to hear it. Now, when you start to hear it on this video, that is at the top of that hill, and it's coming down that hill for that road that is on campus. And it just peaks the top of that hill and it's starting to come down towards Linda Lane. Or not Linda Lane, it's starting to come down towards, it's been a long time, folks. I forget what that road is. Linda Lane and what is it? I forget, sorry. But not Linda Lane, it's Linda Lane, because this camera footage is on Linda Lane, but it's that road that Linda Lane intersects with. Sorry, I got dementia, like I said, and it's been a year since I even touched this. So anyway, you can start to hear it coming on strong. What I thought was the big black truck. And what Pob, I think, now is calling Malrich's truck. But as we see, it's not a truck at all. It's probably a Hummer or something to that effect. It's an SUV of some sort. High off the ground. Souped up SUV. You can hear it coming on. It's coming down to the intersection of that road that has the hill on it. And what's the name of that road? God, I can't think of it. It's got the stop sign. It's about to make a right. Making a right. It's making a right. It's about to cross here. It's about to cross here. Okay, so here is 427.38. Let's see if we can see it. If we play this beam footage. So there it is. You can hear the rumbling of it. It's coming down here. Now we're getting to 428 something, just like on the 1330 Linda Lane camera I showed you. Remember, I went through this analysis. It was the big black truck. But it's not a big black truck, and this is where you have to improve yourself. When you are veiled of more information, you must accept the facts and assimilate them and change and grow. So remember, I thought that was a big black truck. Well, it's not. So that's a 428. By the time it gets to here, it's like 429 and some change when it's coming around here. So we're getting close. But I bring this up because you can hear it, start to hear it on here now. Listen, you can hear it. There you go. That's the sound of it. So this may very well be a Hummer. If anybody knows that they've seen a Hummer in this neighborhood before, let me know. I think I might have. So this could be a Hummer with a muffler, a glass packs on the muffler or whatever. But take a look. It's an SUV. Look at right there. See how it goes all the way back? There's no bed on that. It goes all the way back. The taillights are up higher. That is definitely an SUV. See it? That's an SUV. Yep, you could see it. It's an SUV. So I think it might be a Hummer. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a souped up SUV with, at least it has glass packs or something. They're doing something with the exhaust, okay? Because it's just super loud exhaust. So that's what led me to believe it was a truck, because I've seen a lot of elevated trucks that have that, tricked out exhaust. So this is an SUV with tricked out exhaust. So it's not a truck at all. So I don't think but I'm not excluding the truck from having it, being involved or anything. Until evidence to support that, I don't know. But it's the big black truck is not what I thought it was previously. It's an SUV, and the dog was barking, and outside, in my opinion, heretofore, it wasn't a matter of opening the front door and then you're hearing the dog bark. This dog is barking. But let's hear the dog bark after the SUV arrives, just to see if there's a change in the sound of the dog barking. So as we know, that dog continues to bark for half an hour at least after that truck parks. That SUV parks. Now that could very well be an SUV with that back and forth, not backing into the 1122 King Road parking lot, but actually parallel parking with an open space that was there, right? That could be parallel parking. You see the people parallel park all along the building, for example, and they parallel park on that hill. So maybe there was something available that it was squeezing into, which would, be take a little bit of skill with a big SUV like that. So you could understand them just nudging that pedal, putting it back and forth, and park and then drive, and park and then drive, trying to get that thing into the parallel parking space. So it could be as innocent as that. But yeah, tell me what you think about this. Is Murphy outside? I feel Murphy's outside. That's how loud it sounds. It sounds like it's right there outside, and it's echoing all around the amphitheater here. This neighborhood is an amphitheater. So it's sound echoes all over the place. But it's not going to echo like that if it's behind a wall. When you heard those garbled human sounds previously, they weren't reverberating in the echo chamber here. That is this neighborhood. But the dog barking is. And not initially. Those several barks in the beginning were definitely behind a wall and not reverberating and echoing. They were muffled like the human voices. But then the barks became pronounced and were reverberating and echoing, indicating to me that a dog went from inside to outside. If it's just another dog and it's not Murphy at all, then did somebody let their dog out at that time? Was the dog barking inside and went to go out, so they, got up and let it out? I find that hard to believe because it was not barking that long inside the house to want to be let out. So possible, I suppose. But see what I mean? It's the law enforcement tried to shoehorn this barking as Murphy. They're the ones that said this must be Murphy and this is when it all went by. Well, not exactly, maybe. No. And if you were inquisitive, you would realize what I'm saying there is that this dog, to me, appears to be outside. And it was initially inside. How does that happen? I don't know. And this is where allocution would have helped with this. It could have helped with some of this. Exactly in this instance, who knows? But there should have been allocution. He should have provided details of the crime if he didn't want to go to trial and face the death penalty. That should have been required. Why didn't? I would like them to answer it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to take, we just want to get it over with. Bull! The defense was desperate, man. You have leverage there. If the defense comes to you and wants to work a deal, you've got leverage. It wasn't the other way around. At least that's not how it was presented in the Netflix documentary. It wasn't the other way around. You went pleading to them to take the deal. They came and begged you. That's the way it was presented. You have leverage, Thompson. You should have gotten him to provide all the details and answer all your questions related to the crime. Why didn't you? Well, one reason could be because it was a crappy investigation and your narrative doesn't fit and you don't want that exposed to the light of day. So you'll just take the win and try to preserve your reputation, rather than it being acknowledged that your investigation was crappy. Your narrative certainly is crappy. Once again, not the entire investigation. Parts of it were well done. The vehicle analysis, superb. Well done. This part where they're describing what occurred here and paying in the PCA, well done. Yes, this is exactly how I would describe it. However, I think you needed to inquire much further related to this dog barking and not just assume it was Murphy. And if you are assuming it's Murphy, then you have to account for this inconsistency. Muffled, garbled barks to begin with, and then all of a sudden pronounced, reverberating, echoing barks, indicating the dog was in the house and then out of the house. Well, if the dog's out of the house and then the front door is closed, it couldn't have been in the back. You didn't see the paw prints there in the snow amidst those size 13 footprints. Then you have to assume it's out front and the door has to be closed and the dog is continuing to bark because it wants to be let back in at this point. Who let the dog back in? Who put the dog in the room? At least you should be thinking that and then questioning the roommates. And if the roommates don't mention it, maybe you can say to yourself, I don't think they're being entirely forthright with me. Now, why would they not be forthright with me? And get to the bottom of that. This is what good law enforcement people do. And it doesn't seem to me this was done at all in this regard. That's sloppy. That's not good police work. Anyway, yeah. Whew. Okay, I thought it was going to be short. It wasn't. Sorry. I cannot be short on anything. I'm just too thorough. Sorry. Yeah, let me know what you think. Okay, this is not. I want to thank Enduring Valor for saying what he said. This is not advocating for Brian Kohberger's innocence or saying he's guilty. It's not that at all. This is just trying to find out what happened. This is trying to find out the truth. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, he's guilty. This as much underscores that, or as it also underscores that something is not quite right with Dylan and Bethany's testimony. Despite everything that's been divulged so far, things just don't seem like they're adding up. So this speaks to that. The law enforcement's narrative, especially as it relates to the witness testimony of Dylan and Bethany, it's not adding up. And they got to make it fit. And, you know, I want to know why they don't want it to fit. Why do they not want to know entirely what happened? Does it just doesn't matter to them? I think it should matter. I think it matters. It matters to me. Truth, I will never eschew the truth. And I want to know the full truth and nothing but the truth. So help me. So yeah, let me know what you think. Till next time, take care, everybody. Bye.